Hello everyone. So I got home from the waterfall hike about 2 hours ago, got a nice long shower, got a haircut, I'm nice and refreshed. It was 98 degrees today in the part of the day where I was shooting, 98 degrees Fahrenheit, and it was 100% humidity. It's pretty miserable. So I'm back inside, nice and refreshed, cleaned up. Let's go hop on the computer and post-process one of the images. All right, so I have Lightroom pulled up now. I don't remember if I said this on location, but the second photograph that I took in the vlog, that one was focus stacked as well. And that was because I had a little patch of rocks in the bottom right of the composition that were a little soft, even with F11, F13, and focusing a third of the way into the picture. They were still soft. So I did the focus shift function, which gave me about 6 shots. And instead of focus stacking the whole scene, which would have messed some things up, and I'll explain that in a second, I just did kind of a simple way of focus stacking just for this little area. So let's go ahead and hop into Lightroom and I'll show you what I mean here. Okay, so I have shots of my hand in front of the lens, kind of a shot here and a shot here. And so that just keeps me organized so that I know everything inside of my hand are all the focus brackets here that the D850 does with the focus shift shooting. So you can see that I 5-starred the very first bracket, and then here's the raw file for the second bracket. And then here's my final edited shot that you guys saw in the vlog. So here is the shot where I focused about right here on this middle rock, and all the background is nice and sharp. You can see the middle of the composition is sharp, the background is nice and sharp, but the foreground down here, the rocks and some of these rocks here, they're pretty soft. And the first shot that I 5-starred, the focus point was like right here. So you can see all these rocks in the foreground are actually really sharp in this composition, but the midground and the background fell pretty soft. So instead of taking all 6 or however many shots there are, and blending them all together and doing a bunch of focus stacking functions in Photoshop, I'm just going to basically mask the sharp foreground rocks into the other shot. So the reason why I'm doing that instead of blending the whole photo together as one focus stacked image is because of all these trees and leaves in the background. So since I was doing a longer exposure, you can see even on the exposure I did, these tree leaves right here were waving all in the wind, and it was making them fall into kind of a blur. Now some people, can't stand this effect. I kind of like it. I think it adds that extra little bit of ethereal goodness, kind of a fairy tale look. It kind of adds a nice softness and some motion to it. I kind of like it. But what I don't like is when you have these leaves moving in every single exposure, and then you try to blend all those focus stacked images together, and then you have one leaf appearing in like 5 places, almost ghosting, and then you have a really weird ghosting image instead of just one nice little wavy, directional motion kind of long exposure effect instead of a ghosting effect. So that's why I chose not to blend this image together, because it was actually quite windy. In this little tunnel here, you can see where the light is coming in the top right. There's a little path where the light was traveling through, and wind was also traveling through, all the way from the top corner, all the way through the forest here. And you can see the leaves over here were getting some wind. Obviously, the leaves up here were getting wind. And again, I like that effect, that motion effect, but I don't like it when I have to blend all different kinds of photos, because the leaves move in every single exposure. So if I have to focus stack, 6 or 7 shots, the leaves are just going to ghost. So let me show you what I did. So first, just in the basic develop stuff, I just bumped the exposure, bumped the contrast a little bit, cranked the shadows, came down here and did my profile corrections. I always turn the sharpening all the way down in Lightroom because I think Lightroom sharpening is just atrocious. So I always kill the sharpening, and then I just synced those settings over to this photo here. So we basically have the photo with the sharp foreground and the photo with the sharp background, and then I just need to take them into Photoshop and blend them. So I'll show you how I do that. I'll catch you guys in Photoshop in just a second. All right, so here we are inside of Photoshop, and I went ahead and renamed the layers. So this is our sharp foreground layer, and then of course our sharp background. And we can go ahead and just zoom in again for you guys to show you the difference here. So here is our sharp rock, and there's our soft foreground, sharp and soft. Okay, so you're going to notice an issue. So if I turn the layers off and on, you can see that there's a little bit of shift in the image. One kind of comes a little closer to the lens and the other kind of moves a little further back. That's called focus breathing. So essentially, these photos need to be aligned, which is going to present us with the same issue as focus stacking all the images together. It's going to make those leaves and everything else start ghosting because the water is moving and the leaves are moving. And if we align these two images, Photoshop's not going to know exactly what to do because you can see they keep there's a slight shift. There's a little bit of a zoom shift, the focus breathing. So here's how to overcome this. If you've ever ran into this issue before and there's just a little bit of the image that you need to paint in, okay, even without aligning, I can't fix this because if I just create a black mask and I go down here with a white brush, let's see, at 100%, I still can't paint this in effectively because look, it's going to shift the image. The whole image is shifting. And there's soft corners. The corners are ghosting because it's not aligned with the other image, okay? Now, if you're just using this for online use and, you're just doing like an Instagram thing, that's more than fine. That's perfectly fine for social media. But I do a lot of printing. I like to print my images, and I actually think I might end up printing this one or even sell this one in a print series. I quite like the way the light is traveling through this image. So I wanted to do this with very good technique. So I'll show you how to do that. So let's go ahead and delete, whoops. Let me undo that. Let's go ahead and delete that mask there. And here's how we're going to do this. So we're just going to select these two images. We're going to hit Command-J to create a copy of each of those layers. We'll select these two, hit Command-G to put them in their own little group right now. We'll just leave those alone. We're going to take the copies that we made, and we're going to actually do the auto-align function that we didn't want to do. And I'll show you why. So we'll go and do auto-align layers. We'll leave it on auto and click OK. And we'll let that finish. And as soon as we're finished here, which hopefully it should be pretty quick, I'll show you exactly how we're going to paint this in. Okay, so there you go. So it finished. All right, let's just make sure we don't need to crop anything. So we need to crop just a little bit, have just a little bit of some dead pixels on the side there. All right, just drag it down a little bit. And I'm not being super precise here since we're just doing the video. I'm just going to crop to where I know there's no more dead pixels. Okay, we'll go ahead and hit Enter. All right, locked that crop in. All right, so now we are aligned. If you look, as I turn the little eyedroppers on the layers off and on, there's no more shift. There's no more focus breathe function. So now we have this foreground layer aligned with the background layer. So now all we have to do is just delete this background layer. We can go back to our original background layer here. There we go, background. Let's drag it out of the group. We can get rid of the other foreground. And now we can create an option mask or a black mask on that foreground. We can zoom in, and now we can paint it in with full confidence, knowing that we are perfectly aligned. And everything is going to end up nice and sharp, like so. You can see there's no ghosting on the rocks. Everything is painting in perfectly. Obviously, the water is going to be a little bit ghosted, but that's perfectly fine. All right. There we go. And that's really all we need. That's all we needed was just this little patch of rocks right here, this little section. Just going to make sure I got all that all up here. We don't want to go too far because it was a very shallow field of focus for this first shot. So that's it. Now we have that really sharp foreground and the sharp background. So we're good to go, and we never had to actually align the images and keep the ghosting. We just aligned them for the sake of being able to mask in this one little area down here. So let's go ahead and Command-E to mix those together, and we'll start the post-processing. So there's not a whole lot I'm going to do to this. As you guys saw from the finished photo, this is already almost kind of done. So what I might do is just open it up in Camera Raw, do a couple other little retouching stuff here. Let's see, let's add a little bit more contrast. We're going to take the blacks up, actually, instead of down, because I'm going to do something in a minute that's actually going to crush the blacks, so I want to take them up a little bit before I do that. We'll take the whites up to have that nice, crispy, airy whiteness in the water there. We're going to add a little bit, just a little bit of minus clarity. Going to add some dehaze, okay, and I'm actually going to take the saturation down about 4%. Maybe 3%. Let's do that. Okay, and then let's see. Do I want to do anything else? Let's go in here. Let's target let's see what the yellows do. All right, let's take the yellows up about 8%, and same with the greens, about 8%. Okay, now you're probably wondering why I came here and did a global saturation in the negatives and then came in here and upped the saturation here. I just find that just works a little better. That's just kind of a weird little formula that I have. Whenever I go back in here in the HSL scale and up the saturation, I always like to take it down globally first. I don't know why. I hate the saturation tool. It can get really nasty really fast. So I just like to kind of go into the negatives on that before I mess with this. So So I think that's good for now. We'll go ahead and lock that in, and that'll lock it into that layer there. All right, you can see what we did there. Before, after. It's just a little bit of a lift in color and exposure. All right, we'll go ahead and we'll just make a duplicate for the heck of it, and we will hold Option, create a new layer. We're going to create a dodge layer. Okay, we'll go ahead and do overlay and fill with 50% gray. And then I'm going to go over here to channels and create a luminosity mask. So we'll hold Command. That's going to select all the luminosity in the scene. Basically, that's going to ensure that when I dodge, I'm only going to dodge the luminosity. I'm not going to accidentally nick any of the shadows. So we'll go ahead and create a group for that, and we will apply that luminosity mask to the group. We will drag the dodge layer into the group, and then when we hit B and we paint with white, we're going to be dodging. So let's go ahead and take this opacity way down on the dodging layer, like 20%. We'll take the flow down to about 30 something. That looks good. And then we'll just start dodging some of the light here. So let's do some of the waterfall. All right, we'll do that rock right there. Basically, I'm just following the natural patterns of the light. And all the luminosity mask is doing is ensuring that I do not go outside of my boundaries of where the light is hitting. So it's basically a nice safety net. Making sure I don't nick any places where there is not light already hitting. So we'll go ahead and get a big brush and we'll kind of dodge this back here. I definitely want to dodge the back of the forest because that's where a lot of the light is coming in, and I really like that it's overexposed. I want to keep it that way so that the viewer's eye has no question where the light source is coming from. It's quite apparent. And normally I wouldn't like this big white blob up here, but I'll show you what I'm going to do about that in a second. I'm going to make it a little more warm, because in person it was very warm, but the camera's sensor couldn't capture all the detail in the color and the highlights while also capturing the detail here. However, the D850 did do a very good job at rendering the color and the exposure very even. I will say that. It does a very good job at rendering the colors very nicely, just straight out of the camera. Okay, so I'm just having fun doing some dodging. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I could do this stuff forever. All right, so we'll go ahead and do the same thing and create a burn layer. So let's go ahead and do a luminosity mask again. All right, which we really don't need to do that again, honestly. Let's go ahead and deselect that. I'll show you a new way. So if you've already created a luminosity mask, just create another group, and you can drag, if you hold Option, just drag this luminosity mask on the group layer. And we're going to hit Command-I to invert that layer. And the reason why we're doing that is because we don't want it to target the highlights anymore. We want it to target the shadows for burning, all the dark spots and dark portions. So now we can go ahead and create another option layer. We'll call this one Burn instead of Dodge. We will select Overlay and Fill. There we go. So now, instead of painting with white, over here we're going to paint with a black brush, and we're going to start burning. We'll turn the flow up a little bit. And this is where you start getting some really nice definition to the waterfall. You see how I'm starting to really bring out those blacks in the waterfall? All the little bits of black rock that are showing behind the water. Let's turn the opacity up a little bit. This is where it gets really fun for me, because it really starts to add definition to the white water. Look at this little pocket of water right here with a rock. I mean, that just really gives detail and contrast, beautiful contrast to the water and the rocks. So there we go. We'll just keep, you almost never really even knew that detail was there, and burning just really accentuates all the great contrast that was there just naturally in the scene. All right. And again, since I am inside this luminosity mask over here, it is keeping me in the shadows and not affecting the highlights. That way I don't burn the highlights. Notice I'm just being sloppy and running right over the highlighted areas, but it's only affecting the dark shadows in those areas because the luminosity mask is restricting me to those portions. That's what's so beautiful about that. Okay, that's good. Let's do some burning, just some light burning on some of the trees. All right, just very, very light. And some of the rocks over here. All right, cool, I like that. And then let's go ahead and put both of these, the dodge and the burn layer, in their own group, Command-G. That way we can control everything, the dodge and the burn globally with an opacity. So let's go ahead and turn that off. That's no dodging and burning, and that's with it. None and with. It's beautiful. So let's just take that opacity and ease it up a little bit. We'll go in and individually take the burn down. I think we might have gone a little too far with the burning. All right, I think that's good. Good. Then let's create another layer. Okay, we'll call this one, I don't know, warmth. And this is where it's going to get fun adding light up there in the corner. Because remember, there was some warm light there when I was in person, so we want to accentuate that. Let's hit B on the keyboard. We're going to go over here and take a color sample of one of the yellowish green leaves here. So that's kind of the, so there we go. I just used the eyedropper. That's one of the natural colors that's in the scene. So I just want to take that and make it a little bit brighter and a little bit more yellow. Okay, something like that. There we go. A little bit more like the sun, basically. And then I'm just going to take this brush and very softly create that natural light feeling that was actually there when I was shooting. Let's take the flow up and let's just paint. Very lightly paint. Look how beautiful that is. So beautiful. Now, just create that nice little light trail that was there. All right, I'm just using the pressure sensitivity on this Wacom tablet and the Wacom pen to just lightly brush this in and paint these beautiful bits of warm light where it was actually hitting in person. Okay. Very nice. Love that. All right, now that adds a really nice warm contrast into the greens. So this, I'm just controlling the opacity right now. I'll take that down to about 80%, and that's a before and after, and before and after. That might be a little overboard. We'll go down a little bit. Okay, and at this point, we'll go ahead and do Shift Command Option E, which is going to create one layer out of everything we've done. We'll hit Command J to create a duplicate of that. Okay, then we're going to go into Camera Raw, and this is crazy what I'm doing right now, but I will explain myself in a second. I'm going to take it and overexpose this layer by 2 stops. Okay, and this is the copy, remember. So I'm going to go to Filter and Blur, Gaussian Blur, and we're going to blur this pretty heavy. And then here's where the magic comes in. If you blur the layer and overexpose it, and then come here to the blending mode and change it to multiply, oh yeah, you get that beautiful fairy tale look. So I'm going to crank that up a good bit, something like that, maybe 60–70%. And then I'm going to create a mask and undo it in some of the harsh shadows that it's affecting down here. So let's paint with a black brush. Let's make the opacity somewhere around 30%. Take the flow down, and let's just start undoing it in certain places, just so we can get some of that light value back and some of these really dark shadows. Just in here, just in a lot of the foreground. I want that background to remain super dreamy. I guess that's the word. Just super dreamy and fairy tale-y. That blur layer with the multiply blend mode, it really adds. I do that on almost every one of my photos. I don't know. It's just kind of my thing. It's not quite an Orton effect. It's almost like a really harsh contrast with some Orton, with some soft. I don't even know, just magic. I don't even know how to explain it. It's just, it's a very cool feel that takes that like hard digital edge off of the image. That you know, even once you sharpen it, it still just makes everything nice and soft and believable. It adds some reality to the image. So let's do that. Before and after, before and after. Might even go a little bit more on it. Okay, something like that. Again, I'm not going to be super precise because I already spent 45 minutes processing this for the video, so that's pretty good. And then the last thing I do, we'll just go ahead and merge all these layers together. Who cares? We'll just do Command E, merge them all down. The last thing I'll do is go into Filter and add some sharpening. Go into the Nik collection, my favorite sharpener in the world. This is the best sharpening you'll ever use, is the Nik sharpener. And I always have my little formula. We'll do 80% there and 25% there. Hit OK. And then we will just sharpen certain areas of this, and we will be done and good to go. And I'm going to show you how insane the sharpening is on this. It's unbelievable how much detail it pulls out of these rocks, and it's almost like the image was soft or blurry before, but it wasn't. Okay, here we go. And I'm not going to worry about masking it in because you guys know how to do that. I'm just going to show you. So look, before, after, before, after. Isn't that insane how much detail is just I mean, chiseled out of these rocks. Let's get in even closer here. So before, after. Let's go down here. Before, after. And then we'll do that nice foreground rock that we made nice and sharp. Somewhere around here. Before and after. Isn't that weird how the before almost looks like it's just a blurry image to begin with? Get down here and show you. So that's before and after. Before and after. So weird what this sharpener does. It makes your sharp image look blurry, basically, and then it takes it and makes it extra sharp. So obviously I would create a mask and paint in just the rocks and leave the water and the green out of it. But I think that's pretty good. Now that I'm looking at this, I think this back here is way too green. So what I would probably do is just simply go back in to camera raw and crank up the warm tones, and then desaturate and devibrance the whole image a little bit. Okay, something like that. And then keep going with the warm tones, lock that in. And this is just a personal preference thing. You don't have to do this. And then I would create an option mask and just paint that in very subtly back here to get some of those warmer tones in the back, and just desaturate it ever so slightly. But it's hard to tell with this image because I shot it when it was raining. And when it rains, all of the foliage turns super vibrant. So, I mean, as you've seen this whole time, I haven't really added any saturation at all. I mean, these colors just pop right out of the camera. So I have to kind of tame those down sometimes. Okay, so something like that looks pretty decent. I like that. I like the light coming from the top right. Again, I think it's a little bit overdone this time. I was just in a little bit of a rush, but you get the basic idea. Just have fun, use your own creative vision. Dodging and burning always helps add really good contrast and dimension. And I hope you guys got something out of this video. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.